This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, we follow the corn, or at least the guy who followed the corn, and we check out yet another crop damaged by the drought. And could it be R2D2% be in our future? All that and more today on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. Well, Isaac came and left, and what I feared most didn't happen. Down crops from the high winds. At least we have that going for us. I talked to our crop guys, and the rain totals are all over the place. Todd Easton got a little over 2 inches north of Charleston. Bill Uphoff near Mattoon got 3¼ inches on his farm, while Todd Wachtel down south reported nearly 6 at the home farm, 7 inches 2 miles to the south, and tells of other farmers getting 8 inches just 3 to 8 miles away. It was Todd who also added he thought it was ironic that the worst drought in our lifetime might end with above average annual rainfall. True dat. We'll be talking to the guys next week to find out all the fun facts from rain totals to what's ending up in the grain trucks. But first, let's turn to Monica and see what she has for us. Monica?
Thanks, Fred. I'm Monica Becker. The remnants of Hurricane Isaac came to visit last weekend and left a wonderful housewarming present, a decent rainfall. The USDA reports that statewide rainfall averaged 3.2 inches. That in turn helped ease the soil moisture problem that we have followed all summer long. Statewide topsoil came in at 19% very short, 28% short, and 51% adequate. In our area, topsoil was rated 27% very short, 25% short, 44% adequate, and 4% surplus. That was the highest adequate rating for a couple of months, and the first time since July we reported a surplus. But that rain came too late to help the corn and too soon to help the harvest. Farmers were out in force last week, bringing what corn bothered to grow, only to be slowed down by Isaac. The USDA reported that statewide corn was 95% dented, 63% matured, and 12% harvested. In the East-Southeast district, it was 100% dented, 83% mature, and a quarter of the corn crop was harvested. Soybeans are reported at 41% turning yellow and 7% dropping leaves statewide, and locally we're at 52% turning and 14% dropping leaves. But the good news is that Isaac and the moisture it left has helped improve the quality of the soybean crop around the state. The percentage of the crop rated good or excellent jumped 7 points to 18%. I don't know about you, but I didn't see many puddles out in any of the fields. Anything that didn't fall on concrete seemed to be absorbed immediately. But apparently, some must have made its way to the rivers because the Coast Guard has eased barge draft restrictions that were put in place on the lower Mississippi River earlier this summer. The Coast Guard is allowing barge drafts of 10 feet, still below the normal draft of 12 feet, but up from the limit of 9 feet before the rains. The barge tow size restriction stays in place with no more than 25 barges for southbound tows. Why does this matter? The Mississippi River is the main U.S. grain shipping channel for the Midwest, with 55 to 65% of all U.S. corn, soybeans, and wheat exiting the country via the Gulf Coast. Now, with soil moisture returning to only slightly horrible, a new study from the Agricultural Research Service of the USDA says that the best way to improve your field's performance may be to leave it alone this fall. David Huggins of the ARS conducted studies to determine how standing crop residues affect snow accumulation and soil water levels across entire fields. During a 2-year study, snow depths, density, and soil water storage were measured. The results: Huggins found that snow distribution patterns on no-till fields made soil water distribution more uniform and increased soil water recharge rates. The USDA suggests that producers affected by the drought, which is just about everyone around here, might benefit from using no-till to increase the amount and uniformity of the snow cover on the fields and therefore help the fields return to their pre-drought state. And when your fields are back up and ready to go next spring, will you have the seeds to plant? According to several seed producers, no problem. According to industry representatives, most seed crops are irrigated, Most seed companies planted extra acreage, and the South American crops are looking really good. So there should be plenty to plant next spring. This may not be the case for all hybrids, so you'll still want to contact your seed guys sooner as opposed to later. And finally, there's an obesity problem in America. No, not only with those Americans lined up to the chocolate fried taco stands, but those lined up at the starting gate. There is an obesity problem with horses. Nearly half of all pleasure horses are overweight, according to Dr. Scott Austin of the U of I Veterinary Medicine School. The reasons, same with humans, are cited to be genetic factors, overfeeding, and a more sedentary lifestyle. And they don't even watch cable. Horses who are overweight are more likely to suffer from insulin resistance and laminitis. Also, the extra weight can strain bones and tendons, adding to the pain a horse can suffer. Dr. Austin suggests that owners of horses with weight issues should contact their veterinarians about ways of avoiding health issues. So, wonder if they make a low-cal oat bag. That's it for this week. I'm Monica Becker.
Monica mentioned the barge traffic down the Mississippi River. Once it leaves your truck, do you ever really wonder how it gets to market? My old friend and former neighbor Todd Gleason did, and arranged for a bus trip called Follow the Corn. I had a chance to talk to him about his experiences and that of those who went along for the ride. So you had 54 interested grain fans.
Yeah. Farmers,
Farmers.
listeners, spouses. Yeah.
What sort of stuff did you see along the way?
We saw a lot of corn at first, and we saw a lot of trees. Yeah, I was a little worried. We saw, because we were in the bus, this is a 5-day trip, and I had them in the bus 4 out of the 5 days for more than 8 hours.
Okay.
So the first day was interesting because I thought it was the longest day, and maybe not. It was more broken up. We started out here, loaded at the I Hotel, and then we picked up 11 more folks in Mount Vernon. Now we're in southern Illinois. We drive an hour and we get off for lunch at the 17th Street Bar and Grill in Marion. If you have not been there, by the way, really, it's a really good barbecue joint. We ate at really good places.
I might try to organize a bus trip just for that.
So I'm going to tell you about them. So and then we made another hour after that and stopped at Mound City, Illinois, on the Ohio River.
Okay.
And CGB has a grain elevator there. It's a rail and river terminal both.
Okay.
And I was hoping to get off the bus, and the plant manager walks on the bus and says, "I really don't want to get them off because there's so much truck traffic here. Is it okay if we stay on?" And I thought, I don't want to. And I tried to get him to get off, but as it turned out, we stayed on, and everybody had been to a grain elevator anyway. And so I just put him on the mic on the bus. I asked him maybe a question or two, and then for the next 40 minutes, the back of the bus, the folks on the trip just pummeled this guy with questions about how the elevator worked, about aflatoxin, about pushing tows up and down the river. What difference does it make if the Ohio is really low? And it is. In fact, we drove the bus. This is kind of fun, and I've got a photo of this. The bus up on top of the levee. And so we have this bus up on top of the levee, and we're looking down on the Ohio River, and out in the midst of the river, right in the middle, are these big sandbars. And the place is just really low. There's no water in this river. And the plant manager tells us that last year at this time, the river was just 3 feet from the top of the levee. Now, to give you an idea, and I don't really have this measurement, but I think we could have turned the bus on its end and then stacked 2 more on top of it, and we would have been about even with the top of the levee. It was a big, tall levee, or maybe just 2, but it was a long ways up. So barges are not being filled all the way up.
Same as the Mississippi.
Right, they're not being filled all the way up, and rather than pushing a tow of 36 barges, they can only push a tow of 12. And rather than 10 days, it takes 21 days.
Wow. So
maybe as much as 27. So So if you really start to
The
multiply
cost of
it,
transportation is
cost
going up.
transportation is enormous. So it's, you know, a third of the cargo, 2.5 to 3 times as long to get to the port.
You saw how the grain got down there.
Right.
Train, barge,
By barge.
and that sort of thing. What was the main terminus like? What was the main terminal like?
This is a phenomenal place. The main terminal can store 4 million bushels. Well, 4 million is not very much.
Right.
4 million's not very, it just isn't very big. There'll be a lot of elevators here in around Illinois that
Okay.
store 4 million bushels. They run 400 million bushels through that facility. So it's just a constant in on the belts and a constant out on the belts. And what you'll see on some of the B-roll, for instance, is, and they were unloading a barge of soybeans at the time we were there, and they were loading a Korean flagged vessel. Well, take this back. They were loading a U.S. flagged vessel that was a Korean vessel that was going to China with soybeans.
Okay.
How about that? But they were unloading this barge, and each of the scoops that come through hold 1 ton,
Okay.
2,000 pounds.
Okay.
Now they dropped a bobcat in the bottom of this barge too to move the beans around.
Wow.
But the whole place is really clean, and they're moving grain and oil seeds, corn and soybeans for the most part, through it really rapidly. What I was struck by, and this is the first time that I had made note of this, the grain operator there, the plant manager there, Eric Slater, told us if you take the population of the United States, which is about 370 million, but have it, and about 160 million, that's not quite that way, but 160 million, you put everybody in California. You have the same geography, roughly speaking, same size place, and then you surround it by water. Now you've got Japan, but they all need to eat.
Yes.
And they don't have the ability to do it themselves. So Zint Now, which is a livestock cooperative, and they have, you know, hogs, poultry, turkeys, chickens, beef cattle, dairy cattle, all those things, feeds in large part that Japanese nation. But they do it just in time with grains from the United States, grains and oilseed from the United States. And these folks at Zint Now felt and made me feel entirely responsible
For the health and well-being of Japan.
for the health and well-being and feeding of Japan. And I had not really gotten the direct relationship of the Illinois farm, of the Midwest farm, to Japan. We talk often about Japan because it's the #1 importer of corn from the United States. But that direct relationship really threw me. And it's classic Japanese because it's a just-in-time delivery relationship. So when Isaac comes through, that creates a problem. When they have a tsunami, that creates a problem. A drought in the United States, that creates a problem. And in it, because they don't have the storage, remember, 4 million, running 400 million through, so it's constant turnover.
100 times a year.
Yep, 100 times a year.
Wow. So, what was the reaction of some of the farmers who went on the trip to see this?
They all loved it. I mean, they're all machinery geeks. They're all machinery geeks. So, you know, spouses and husbands, male or female, it didn't matter. They all loved it.
What would Joe Farmer get from this trip?
Well, we call it Follow the Corn for a reason. Now, and you know very well that it's follow corn and soybeans, but follow the corn kind of trips off the tongue easily enough. It's not often that you get to see the process of agriculture. They get to see their farm side. They get to see it maybe go to the elevator. They might even get to the local ethanol plant. But following it further than that, trying to figure out, well, where does it go and what happens to it? How does it get there? So the idea that corn goes to Mound City, to the rail terminal in some from southern Illinois, but even from here, from because CGB, which is owned by Zinn now, operates many river terminals and makes its way down to New Orleans and then delivers just in time to feed the livestock that feed Japan, is really just an amazing process. And we do similar things here. We take shuttle trains from the state of Illinois full of corn. We put them on rail. They make their at 100 or 110 cars, and they make their way to Hereford, Texas. And if you look down at Hereford, Texas in Google Maps, you'd be amazed by the number of beef cattle are there. But those beef cattle have to have a constant supply of corn. Now they've got center pivots close by, but it's not enough. And so you have to have a constant supply of grain and oil seeds to do that. And in American agriculture, we do that for all kinds of things: feed, fuel, fiber, clothes you wear, cotton, those sorts of things. And it just happens. It just happens. And it's an amazing process. It's no wonder that agriculture is the leading export of the United States.
Well, Todd, I loved hearing about this. Thank you so much for spending our time with us.
Oh, fantastic. I really enjoyed it. And hey, make sure they listen up, because Follow the Corn's coming again soon, I'm sure.
Excellent. Hot, dry, miserable. That's my summary of August. Cameron Craig looks back and gives us a bit more detailed report on the weather month that was August in Under the Four Rivers Sky.
It has been said throughout this season that this summer is one for the history books. Drought set in June and continued through July with record-breaking lack of precipitation. However, August changed the trend with periodic rain events that total more rain and cooler conditions than both June and July. On Thursday, September 6th, the U.S. Drought Monitor released its current drought situation for the United States. Central Illinois through July and August was classified under extreme drought conditions. The agency indicates that with the periodic rain events in August and with the help of the remnants of Isaac and additional rainfall since the start of September, the drought situation has improved greatly. Most of Central Illinois is currently in a moderate drought, with a very small band of severe drought conditions crossing the region from the southeast to the northwest. The exceptional drought situation along the southeast border of Illinois and western Indiana has disappeared. Although drought conditions have improved across the region, precipitation amounts are still about a foot below normal for the year. Let's do the numbers. The average temperature for August was recorded at 75.9 degrees, which is still 1.1 degrees above the 30-year average of 74.8 degrees. The total precipitation received was 2.77 inches, down nearly a half an inch from the 30-year average of 3.34 inches. The start of August continued the trend set in July, with daytime highs sitting above 90 degrees for the first 10 days, with the highest recorded temperature on August 2nd with 99 degrees. Periodic rainfall events on the 2nd, 3rd, 9th, and 10th dropped the daytime highs into the mid-80s on the 11th to a daytime high of 77 degrees on the 13th. Daytime highs were not that low since the 6th of June. Daytime highs continued to remain in the mid-80s down to the upper 70s for the middle of the month through the 21st. Then, daytime highs returned to the low 90s for the rest of the month. The most precipitation that fell during the month was 1.11 inches on the 16th, with 2 nearly half-inch rainfalls coming in second on the 9th and 27th.
That August, the impact was somewhat was beneficial. Any rain is beneficial to a drought, but we had from a little bit north of here in Champaign, they ran about 1.5 inches above the average monthly precipitation, a little bit below here, so it was more close to average, and that will have a small impact on the drought, because the drought was long term for a number of months, and you don't eliminate that in a short period of time, but it did have, I would call it, a minor impact on the drought.
Although the corn crop lost its ability to get the much-needed rain this season, the beans certainly benefited from the August rains. Farmers with bean crops gave a sign of some relief. The barren-looking landscape through July began to change as lawns turned green and some communities lifted burn bans as well as water restrictions. Most importantly, the spirits of Central Illinoisans have lifted as well. Since September 1st, rainfall totals have reached 3.75 inches, which is 0.37 inches above the 30-year average of 3.38 inches. Isaac brought 2.52 inches over the first 2 days of the month, and thunderstorms and rain showers brought another 1.23 inches on the 4th and 5th. If we continue to see periodic rain events through the month of September, the deficit will undoubtedly get smaller and drought conditions will continue to improve here in Central Illinois.
Now with me is Scott Bierman of Promo Lawn Care. And Scott, the drought really hit our yards too, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, so what do you think happened? Some of our yards have come out of dormancy looking great, but other sections have looked horrible.
I mean, a lot of it's just the weaker grass probably died, and the areas that were in the direct sunlight, you know, the extreme heat we had probably, and my thought would just be it baked the roots, and if you didn't have a healthy root system, it suffered a lot worse than if you had a healthy one.
So even if it was in good loam soil, if it got baked on top, the roots got too hot,
that's
out of luck.
Yeah, that's probably what happened.
And a lot of yards don't have that beautiful black loam, so we're even worse shape.
Yes.
Okay, so we got a patchy yard. What can people do to help it recover?
I mean, I guess the first thing, you just want to make sure you do stuff in the right order. Probably, I mean, you want to start off by doing like a fall fertilizer and weed control. Get the fertilizer on the ground, kill the weeds. Then you can go out and do like a fall, like a core aeration, along with some type of seeding, either overseeding or slit seeding. Get the seed in the ground while there's moisture. And then hope Mother Nature takes care of the rest.
So what's the difference between slit seeding and overseeding?
Slit seeding is actually a machine that you use to cut it into the ground. It makes little slices into the ground. Some people call it slice seeding. And then it actually embeds it into the ground. Overseeding is just basically broadcasting it out on top of the soil.
Now, one of the problems this summer is that the soil got so hot and so baked in areas. The aeration will take care of some of that. Would split seeding be better in those sorts of areas?
Yeah,
Break up the soil a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, if the judgment that I use is depending on how severe the dead areas are. And at this point, if it hasn't greened up by now, it's probably not going to.
Oops.
So if it's in really bad shape or really thinned out, then you're going to slit seed. You'll get better coverage and a lot better results. If the yard is green but just thinned, then overseeding will do. And then, like I said, as long as you do everything in the right order and we get plenty of rain the rest of September, you should be in good shape.
Okay, so is it too late to start a new lawn area, a new area? I mean, we're in September, you know, October is looking over its shoulder and November right behind there. Is it too late, or is it, you know, I already heard by Memorial Day. Or Labor Day.
No. I mean, if September is the month that we use as the best time of year to do any seeding, planting bushes and trees and stuff like that too. So if you are going to put in a brand new yard, like on a new construction home or something, September would be the ideal time to do it.
Okay.
You just need to get everything graded and seeded. So, because you want to allow 6 to 8 weeks of good weather to get the yard and the grass to get rooted and get established before winter hits. So if you do it in September, that gives you pretty much through the end of October.
So if it hasn't come back, it probably isn't. Do things in the correct order.
Yep.
And if you're going to do it soon. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Scott Bierman, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
And finally, one of the worst parts about being a dairy farmer, other than the moist cow chips scattered around, is the fact that cows produce milk 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and need to be milked twice a day for 365 days a year. No vacations, no holidays, no exceptions. pretty hard sell to a younger generation, don't you think? Well, there may be some help coming. About 50 dairy farms in Minnesota and Wisconsin are using robotics to milk the cows on the animal schedule. A Dutch company is selling a dairy system that uses mechanical arms, 3D imaging technology, and robotic droids to attach the equipment and milk the cows. Once done, the system moves the milk to containers for storage and transport. Now, the cows are bribed with some sort of tasty brown nugget of protein and the overwhelming need to unload an udder full of milk. So the cows learn to head over to the milking system whenever they feel like it, day or night. The company claims it's safer for the farmer, cheaper on labor costs, and much more efficient. And it gives the dairy farmer their lives back, at least until the robots take over. Oh, and by the way, I, for one, welcome our milking robot overlords. Well, that's it for this week. Work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunset. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report.